Good evening. I'm calling to order the special meeting of the Board of Education. Today is November 25th, and we are meeting at the Fordyce Building. Would you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Here.
Mrs. Lysy.
Here.
Mr. Smith. Here. Mrs. Sudar.
Here.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you. Do we have any additions or revisions?
We do not.
Okay. We have one addition, and that is the board share out from the Great School Conference or the Capital Conference, and that'll be number 6A after the Business Department update. And at this point, then, I will turn it over to the Superintendent, Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. It gives me a great deal of pleasure to welcome Forest Park Middle School here today, and they're going to, as you know, we present and give you an update on where our buildings are as far as academic performance and progress. And so happy to have Mrs. Tina Hardaway, who's the principal at Forest Park Middle School, to have her team. She's going to introduce her team, and they're going to walk you through the progress that Forest Park has made, and as well as give you an update on to where they are and what they are intending to do as far as academic achievement, their culture, and their ability to get students where they need to be. So at this time, I want to turn the presentation over to Mrs. Hardaway and her team to begin their presentation. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam President and members of the board, Superintendent Mr. Bell, Treasurer Mr. Vasic. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you the progress of Forest Park Middle School. Joining me this evening, we have my team, both assistant principals, Jason Coleman and Stacy Spears, and also we have one of our school leadership team members, Mr. Paul Burkhart, came out to show his support, and I appreciate that. So we'll get started in just a moment. Just waiting for the screen. It's okay.
Okay, there it's starting to come up. We need the light, if you turn, those are the right lights out. Maybe a little more, there we
All
go.
right. Whoa.
Oh, can you see now? If not, we can turn one more back on.
Thank
There
you.
you go, okay.
Can everyone see? You can do them both. I'll just make the, so that they can make sure that they can see all the colors and everything that's appropriate. Okay, today we like to share in regards to 3 specific areas: academics, climate, and culture. As we reflect on our progress in academics, we took a look at our results from the Ohio Achievement Assessment. So first, I'd like to draw your attention to our most recent state report card. This is a new look for the report cards. We received a grade for achievement, for progress, and for closing the gap. However, the other 3 areas do not apply to us, as they are for high school, and there's one for K to 3. In the area of achievement, we earned a grade of a D for our performance index. The performance index comes in the form of a formula based on the number of students who took the test and the points that they've earned regarding students who rated limited, basic, proficient, accelerated, and advanced. Our highest achieving students performed well on the assessment, and they demonstrated growth. As you can see here, this is our progress report. Our students who are very low, maybe even reading below grade level or lacking basic skills in mathematics, they also demonstrated growth. And our students with disabilities, they're making significant strides. They also demonstrated academic growth. However, Despite the growth of the various student groups, our overall progress grade is a D because growth does not necessarily mean that the student passed the Ohio Achievement Assessment. The third category for our state report card was closing the achievement gap, for which we earned an F. The graph here should explain the dilemma a little bit. As you can see, the students that are the red graph represents all students. Students in the blue represent our white students. The majority of them are passing the test or they are at least near target. Students in the green are black students, and these students are not experiencing the same success. And in some cases, they're nowhere near the target, and this is considered an achievement gap. To be successful in this particular category, we must be able to answer the question, is every student succeeding regardless of income, race, culture, and disability? And at this time, while there is evidence of growth, the answer is still no, because various student groups are not making the mark. We don't have 75% passage rate, and all students are not earning that score of proficient or higher. Since we're noticing some growth, we took a look at what's working for us in math and reading. Most of the growth is attributed to classroom instruction at Forest Park. We believe our success is attributed to our tiered instruction provided at Forest Park. The green represents what most students are offered or expected to be able to do in grades 6 through 8. The yellow represents Tier 2, what some students receive. If you're struggling in Tier 1, if they are below grade level in reading and again, and maybe in some basic math skills. The red represents Tier 3, which is the most intense instruction. It's the most intimate setting regarding student-teacher ratio. So these are some of the courses that we offer, and these are some of the things that we think has making a difference in the classroom because we're trying to follow that motto there. What else is working in math and reading? Well, we have teacher-based team collaboration. Some of you may have heard the term TBT before. This is collaboration with teachers who teach the same grade in the same subject. They plan lessons and assessments. They create pacing guides, and they analyze pre- and post data using the 5-step process. Now, the 5-step process consists of analyzing data. It's identifying the strengths and the areas of improvement. We also create strategies to improve, and then we kind of prioritize and highlight which one we want to focus on. Then we create what's called a SMART goal, making sure that it's measurable, making sure that we have a target and a time frame for which we want to be able to accomplish something. And the 5th step usually doesn't happen until after the assessment, after we have the results and we put some of those strategies in place, and we come back and make sure we follow up with the assessment to examine and analyze how things work. We also have a new program called Mastery Connect, which we use in our TBTs when we're analyzing our 5-step process. It's an online program designed to help teachers in collaboration as they create lessons and assessments. They share this in their TBT or their teacher-based team within the building, within the district, and even across the state. In addition to the collaboration, it also affords the teachers the opportunity to quickly score assessments for students, and it equips the teacher to be able to give immediate feedback. And so you may have seen, I'm sure you will see that there are Scantrons that we have, and a student can take a readiness assessment, and it's a bubble-in sheet. They can bubble it in, and then they take their paper up to the computer, and just the camera scans it, and automatically they have their results. So it gives immediate feedback for them and also the teacher in case there's something that they want to do right, following right behind that. So that's our Mastery Connect, and certainly the teachers appreciate that type of instant feedback when they're trying to analyze data. Also, we have differentiated instruction in the classroom, and this is more where students may be working in groups or they may be in pairs. They're being supported in a manner that addresses their particular learning style and based on their needs. We also continue our work with research-based instruction in regards to Marzano's 9 research-based strategies, and also including what I like to call hot questions or Bloom's higher order thinking questions. And then we have formative assessment, and many of our staff members are getting more and more familiar with this. This is tools used to be able to check for understanding while the lesson or during instruction, while the lesson is in place or during instruction, checking for assessment, as opposed to giving homework and then coming in the next day and so many students did something wrong and you didn't check for understanding. But before they leave, during instruction, being able to check for understanding. What's some of the evidence that we have that these things that we put in place are working? We have some of the results from the Ohio Achievement Assessment, as well as our School Improvement Diagnostic Review that we had earlier in the fall, some value-added data along with our academic role recognition. So here you have some information regarding our most recent Ohio Achievement Assessment. I'm just going to focus on the last 3 years. We usually focus on a 3-year trend. As you can see, in 6th grade, our most recent results show that we slipped a little bit there in regards to our 6th grade group. In 7th and 8th grade, we made some strides there in regards to our most recent assessment. In mathematics, you'll notice here that we made some strides in our 6th grade math, as well as our 7th grade math, and then we slipped down a significant amount in our 8th grade mathematics. Here's another example of some of the success we have with our Ohio Achievement Assessment. This is what we call our 400 Club. This particular year, we have 125 7th and 8th grade students who are a part of our 400 Club, and this is just a day where they were recognized at our annual 400 Club pancake breakfast with their parents and family members when they come out and celebrate their success. And the 7th and 8th graders, because during the school year, we tell them about what we expect from them and what they will receive if they pass the test. And so when the fall comes, many of the students who were there with us last year look forward to, did I make the 400 Club? So they're looking forward to being a part of the breakfast. And so that we don't necessarily leave out the 6th graders. We don't really know their results at the end of the school year because they were not with us. They were in 5th grade. But later on in the school year, we do what's called 6th grade stars, and we have an assembly, and we give them medals, and we recognize them for passing all 3 parts of their assessment in 5th grade, with the hopes that one day they will become a part of the 400 Club. Another piece of evidence that what we've been implementing is working. This is a graph about value added. So as you can see, in 2012. We have a graph, and value added speaks to classroom instruction. What we want to be able to demonstrate is that over the year, can a teacher demonstrate a year's worth of growth for those students who they have in front of them for those 9 months. Very similar to other graphs that you've seen, we want to grow the green and shrink the red. In 2012, we had some red. We did not have any green, and we had different teachers in between there demonstrating some growth. As we looked at our most recent OAA results, we have some green and we do not have any red. And this was great news for us because it speaks to the type of classroom instruction that is going on and that is addressing some of the needs of our students, and we're definitely seeing some gains there. And so we're happy about that. That's in our reading. And then we have the same information for our math value added. Again, we wanted to grow the green and shrink the red. In 2012, we had 4 teachers that were considered least effective, which means, according to the data, there's no growth demonstrated in the students that were with them. As we look to 2013, we have no teachers in our red, and we have 2 teachers that jumped to most effective, which means not only are they showing 1 year's growth, but they're showing more than 1, which actually is 2 years worth of growth. And so we're excited about that because even if the results don't show that we are, rated excellent or we have an A on our report card, we know that that something in the classroom is making a difference, and this is something that the teachers needed to see to reassure them that what they're doing is not in vain. And so we were happy to share that with our staff. Another piece of evidence that we have is at the end of Q1, we had an assembly to recognize students who were demonstrating academic growth in the first quarter. So this is just our wall of fame that we have recognizing students who have earned merit roll, honor roll, and distinguished honor roll. So it's in a highly visible place where all of our students can see that. And they were recognized in front of their peers, so that's always a great thing. Okay, now I'll turn it over to Stacy. All right, at this time, we're going to talk about school climate, school and school-wide expectations. So at the end of last school year, at our last faculty meeting, we had the staff to participate in a formative assessment, 2 stars and a step, just telling us the things that they felt like we had done well and the areas that we needed growth. We took the top 3 from each category, and the things that they felt we were doing well was the CHAMPS, rewarding good behavior, and collaboration. The areas that they felt we needed some growth was consistency, social skills, and morale. And what the 3 of us had decided at the end of the year after getting this data was that we were going to go and participate in some professional development so that we could come back and assist the staff and to improve in the areas where they felt that growth was needed. So during the summer, we attended as an administrative team CHAMPS professional development as well as a discipline workshop, and we were fortunate enough to attend the Jostens Renaissance Conference. At the conference, we learned a great deal about rewarding, reinforcing, and recognizing students to achieve or acquire the behaviors that we wanted to see, rather than always focusing on the negative and being involved with discipline and consequences. We also, at that time, learned a great deal about branding and getting our school's name out in the community in a more positive manner. So this logo was created for us for this school year. And we have been doing, I think, a great job of branding our school. As you can see tonight, we're not dressed up in suits to present. We all have on Pride t-shirts. That's part of our branding. We have been doing, I think, a good job of providing an opportunity for students to acquire more Euclid Panther wear and Forest Park t-shirts, hats, and things along those lines. Our motto at Forest Park has always been powered by pride. Pride stands for practice responsibility, respect others, ignore negativity, develop strengths, and excel in academics. And every Friday, the students have an opportunity to be recognized for displaying one of these characteristics. We have the chance for them to earn a pride card throughout the week. The teachers see a student displaying exceptional behavior of one of these characteristics, and they receive a pride card. And their name goes into a drawing on Friday, and they're recognized during morning announcements, and they are able to go to the office and pick up a gift card that's provided by Forest Park PTA. We also have what we call Mission Mondays, where we do focus on character education for our students. The students on every Monday during the 16 times come to the auditorium, and we do an actual lesson that has been developed using the instructional framework. During that time, we go over whatever letter we're working on at that time, and we celebrate something up from that week. So if we're doing, one week we did practice responsibility, and we taught a lesson on practice and responsibility. And then we recognize students for perfect attendance, because, you know, when you're on time and present, you're being responsible. So every week we have something that we recognize that goes hand in hand with whatever characteristic is being focused on at that time. We also have implemented various other activities from using the Jostens model. We've done things for teachers as well and staff. We had a celebration for staff having perfect attendance. They were recognized at the faculty meeting, entered into a drawing, and provided lunch by the administration. And one faculty meeting we had where the teachers received a rosebud, this bud's for you, and for doing a great job of being recognized for whatever it is that the staff had decided that they had been doing a great job. And we randomly choose things throughout the week. It's very exciting. We have where Mrs. Hardaway will come over the announcements and she'll say, all right, it's fifth period. Who has perfect attendance right now? Everyone in your class on time, ready to work. And then the teachers come out in the hall and there's an administrator, security officer, or someone in the hall. And they'll let us know, we radio down, and then Mrs. Hardaway will make a big announcement over the PA, Mrs. Belmonte's class has perfect attendance and we're going to celebrate the students being responsible. So just constantly reinforcing and recognizing students throughout the days and the weeks. This is a slide about our positive behavior systems at Forest Park. Research shows that we should be between 1 to 5% in the red, which is our major incidents resulting in out-of-school suspensions. At this time, we're a little higher than what research says we should be, being at 11%. But that 11% is approximately 60 students out of 550 who have done something that has resulted in an out-of-school suspension. In the yellow, research says that we should be between 5 and 10% for the minor incidents using the quality interventions. Currently, we're at 15%, which comes to about 83 students out of 550. And the green, universal school-wide expectations, research says that we should be between 80 and 90%. And at this time, we're at 74%. We had a referral-free celebration where the students were able to go to a Sunday bar, which goes along with the Johnston celebrations as well. And on that day, we had 407 students that were referral-free out of the 550. So we felt that was truly something to celebrate. Now this graph shows a comparison of our referral data from 2012-2013 school year to 2013-2014. The green line represents the current year and the blue line represents last school year. At this same time last school year, we had over 700 referrals that had been written. Right now, up to this point when the data was collected, we had just a little over 500 referrals that had been written. So we have shown some growth. We have almost 200 plus less referrals than we had previously at this same time last year. So although we may not be where we want to be, we are showing growth and making strides.
And then the third and final piece of the presentation looks at the culture at Forest Park and things that we're doing as a staff to try to change that culture, change the way we do business. And this part focuses on the professional growth. Particular professional development opportunities that we've sought out and selected for our staff that we feel are appropriate for the teachers in the building. We've had educational assistants, we've had guidance, we've had secretaries who have come in for sections. But some of the professional development opportunities that we've provided, we've had 90% of our math and reading teachers have received co-teaching training. 95% of the staff has gone through the CHAMPS training. We've mentioned CHAMPS a couple times. That's a PBIS strategy, positive behavior and intervention support strategy. It's an acronym. The C stands for conversation level. Essentially, it's a system where the teacher very clearly lays out the expectations for the students, whether you're in an assembly, whether you're in a classroom, whether you're going to be doing an activity, whether you're going outside. We do what's called champing the students. And so you tell them what's the appropriate conversation level, what to do if you need help, what kind of activity we're going to be participating in. The M stands for movement, the P stands for participation, and then the S is when you put all those together, you end up with success. And so we feel that, it's a proven strategy that says that when you are very clear with the students what the expectations are, that you're more likely that those students will meet or exceed those expectations. Also, we had a wonderful PD in September with Marianne Brittingham, Respectful Discipline, which deals with classroom management. One of the big things that Marianne Ann focused on was how to de-escalate problems. Some of the challenges that we have at Forest Park are that we have defiance and non-compliance, and so Mary Ann was wonderful in providing some strategies and techniques and tools that the teachers can use right there in the classroom. And we actually had the entire staff was present at that. It was an all-day PD that we had in September. Additionally, Joe Whalen came to Forest Park last year for differentiated instruction professional development. He came and worked with the entire staff for a whole day, and then at the end of the session, Joe asked if there were staff members there that wanted to work with him one-on-one, and he actually came back several weeks later and went into the classrooms and helped the teachers implement some of the differentiation strategies that he described during that professional development session. There was a school discipline professional development with Harry Wong. Also, the incredible Jostens Renaissance experience that we had in Scottsdale over the summer. We had quite a big turnout from Forest Park and from Euclid as a whole, and we have really done a lot as a staff to implement a lot of what we learned at the Jostens Conference. We have a team of students. They are a Renaissance team. We also have a Jostens committee at the building that works on ways to help celebrate students. We very often find ourselves celebrating our athletes. We find ourselves celebrating our honor students, and we find ourselves intervening with a lot of the more at-risk students. And one of the tenets of the Jostens program is looking for and seeking out ways to really, with fidelity, celebrate those kids in the middle that very often get just lost. They don't get the attention paid to that some of the other students do. And then also we've had roughly half of our staff has received the formative assessment training with Donna Snodgrass. That's the FAST training, the formative assessment, kind of on the fly in the midst of instruction. So we've really sought out, again, some really powerful professional development for our staff, and we've already seen some of those results in an effort to help change the climate. After the Mary Ann Brittingham session, the respectful discipline, we had the staff fill out feedback, and these were some of the terms. This Wordle looks at some of the terms that the staff used to describe that session, and it was awesome, excellent, useful, knowledgeable strategies, engaging. It was really, it was truly a fantastic session. We look forward to having Mary Ann back. And then this was during the school improvement diagnostic review, when the state came. They've been to Forest Park over the course of the past 18 months, and they were with us about 3 weeks ago. And one of the people from the state team said this quote that we thought this kind of spoke to what we've done at Forest Park, and said, "There's been a significant change at Forest Park since our first visit. Clearly, everyone loves Mastery Connect. More importantly, teachers are collaborating and working together to analyze data. They get it. There has definitely been a shift in adult practices and a change in classroom instruction." And again, we really thought that this spoke to kind of that shift in climate that we've had. And I believe that a lot of people that have come into the building this year that have compared it to years past would agree with that there's definitely a different vibe at Forest Park.
All right, this concludes my presentation. As you can see, and I hope you can see that we may not be where we want to be, but we're certainly not where we used to be, and we're definitely making strides in the right direction. Again, we appreciate the opportunity to share what's going on at Forest Park. Are there any questions?
Board members? None? Okay, great job.
You did do a great job. It's all well explained. I do have one on the math for the 8th grade that took that big drop. Have you been able to analyze anything to determine why? I mean, is that something that happened across the state? Is it just something that seems to be more local?
I'm not sure if it happened across the state, but in working with our staff, we just tried to focus more this year on actually collaborating more, actually looking at that data in the TBT. We talked about TBT a lot last year, and I know that some people may have thought, well, it's just another new thing, but I think that sometimes when you try something and you see other people doing it and it's working, and you have the data to show that, then it kind of brings other people on board. So with that, I'm just saying, I can see people working, doing the TBT, looking at the data with fidelity and seeing some gains, and hopefully bringing more people on board to understand the importance of actually looking at the data to make decisions in the classroom.
Madam President, can I just?
Yeah, go ahead.
And members of the board,
We can turn the lights back on.
there has been in 8th grade math, has been a slight drop throughout the state, and part of the rationale, I know Heather and I have had a conversation regarding some of the changes in the standards. Really where our students struggle is trying to, when they have to do tiers. I was in an elementary classroom last week, and what they're doing now is really trying to work on them with reading problems and being able to get multiple layers to the math, and so they've been struggling with when they have to find one answer to get to another answer, and there's more of that in 8th grade, and so there has been a drop. I can't give you the exact figures, but there's been a drop in 8th grade, and we're still trying to analyze exactly what we need to do. We know that's part of the problem, being able to get through some of those reading problems, but also being able to make sure we look at things a little bit differently. So we are looking real heavy into that.
I know word problems or reading problems in math, but however you want to call it, has always been something that in the long ago past was usually passed over even by the teachers teaching the math because it was a tough thing to teach. And
Can't do that.
but now you have to because this is the way the tests are, and so providing them with the professional development to learn how to teach that, because it is very different from what they were taught in math methods if they went to college anytime 10 years or before.
And it's common now for math teachers to have word walls in their classrooms. And some students, some math teachers keep journals, and the kids have to write, once a week in their class. So we're noticing some changes in that way as well, because some of the things that they're doing in their classrooms are similar to what's happening in ELA. So it's getting there.
Yeah.
Madam President, the other thing, too, and members of the board, that I found is, especially being in a classroom, kids want to solve the problems quickly. They don't want to spend the time because they just want to get the answer. So what happens a lot of times when they have to spend the time, they don't want to do that, and they get anxious and don't follow through on the processes because they just want to get the answer. And so what we're trying to do is get them to slow down, to be able to take their time and read problems, and teachers are very deliberate in making sure that they have to read through. For example, they have them underline what are some of the key words and making sure that they understand all of that before they even go into the problem, so that they understand the process, which is a little bit different. And so with the new tests that are coming out, they're going to have to get into depth and understand and really be able to understand how they got the answer. So we're trying to get out in front of all of that.
I know it's not easy. The 400, if you would explain for the public why the number 400, what that means.
You need a score of 400 to be considered proficient on the Ohio Achievement Assessment. There are students whose score is definitely higher than 400, but that is the cut score that we're looking for to be a part of that particular club.
Okay. And then I know I had one more. I think I had one more. I try to write as fast as I can. Are the two teachers that you have that scored as most effective in this year's reporting for math, are they modeling their lessons, or are they doing anything to share out how they maybe achieved that?
They haven't actually been in other classrooms, but a lot of times I will send someone to their classroom. And we have, I think, 2 new math teachers this year. And when we come to collaboration time, I may say, okay, you want to collaborate with this particular group right here just to see how things are done, just to have someone to model or be that leader for you. And so I do refer people to them. We actually recognized them today at our Mission Monday meeting.
Okay, good. Yeah, because those are valuable assets. Appreciate that. Those are all my questions. Thank you very much.
I have one quick one.
Okay, go ahead.
How is the neighborhoods this year? Because last year we had to hear a lot about the neighborhood. I'm not hearing it this year, so I'm assuming that it's all good. But
Well, I think that it is better. I will say that earlier in the school year, we had an incident that was harmless, but it didn't look harmless. But once we actually spoke with students, it was harmless, but we had to generate that energy somewhere else. And I'm thankful that we have some people who are new to our building who are actually community members. And so they have a rapport with some of the students. And so when I heard about what happened, I asked that particular teacher, one of our new phys ed teachers, Mr. Wright, I asked him to have a conversation with some of the leaders of this particular group that was having this activity in the community. And he did right away. He came and brought maybe 10 students to the table and did what I like to call speak life. He spoke life into them about being leaders, being an influence, and how to use that influence that they have. He talked to them about the impression that the community has of us and what he'd like it to be and what he knows that they're capable of doing. They shook hands, gave him their commitment and agreement, and at the end of the school day, I didn't hear anything from a community member or from central office, and it's been a while, and I appreciate that. So,
Last year I was here at least once a week, even from the EPD. Got to go over to Forest Park again. Got to go to Forest Park, and I'm not hearing it at all this year.
And every day I do end of the day announcements, and one of my famous quotes is, make sure that you're being respectful in the community. If you don't look good, we don't look good. So represent us well. I say it every day. They probably get tired of it, but they understand what I mean by that because they know how I feel about getting those phone calls or, having a bad impression about what people think is going on inside the school based on what one knucklehead may do outside of the school.
No, that's a plus.
That's okay. I appreciate the fact that you're making such great strides in so many areas because that's a lot to do, and the behavior is an issue that we need to deal with, and I really appreciate all of your work on that, all three of you and all of your staff.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything? No. Thank you very much.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Okay, Becky.
Thank you. Good job, Mrs. Harway, and your team. Thanks for being here. Madam Chair, members of the board, second presentation. As you know, the last meeting we had, our business manager's presentation mysteriously disappeared, and we have been able to reclaim a lot of that information. And so what we're going to do tonight is to have Mr. Pat Higley give you an update on the progress in business and operations, and particularly paying special attention to our project and timeline, and giving you just some of the overview as to where we currently stand. So at this time, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Mr. Pat Higley, our business and operations manager.
All right. Hi, members of the board, Mr. Bell, Mr. Bassick, I am happy to be here tonight. We tried this about a month ago, and unfortunately, like Mr. Bell said, the dog ate my homework. So I'm happy to be here tonight to share this with you and the progress of phase 2 of our building project. And let me get the right view on here.
Up there, is it slideshow?
There we go.
Top.
Anytime now.
You double click on the picture.
There we go.
There we go.
All right, good. Tonight we're going to talk to you about 3 things, and Mr. Bell has asked that, again, we update you on phase 2 and where we are within phase 2.
Can you explain what we're talking about by
Phase 2 of the building project in 2007, obviously, we started phase 1 of the project that culminated in 4 elementary schools in 2012. Phase 2 is a look at how we're going to move forward with our middle schools and high school. So we've talked a little bit about some ideas that we've had, and certainly at this point we're probably in line to get out with the community, to talk with the community, to get their input and figure out what they would like to see in phase 2, which is ultimately what the most important opinion is. So tonight we're going to talk to you about our architect and how we selected them and the process through which we used to pick them. I believe that they're an incredible firm that shares the same vision that we have for not only the Euclid schools, but Euclid as well. I'll report the progress that we have made with a couple partnerships that we have been exploring throughout the community, and we'll share with you the timeline as to how we believe all this can roll out leading up to November of 2014. First, I want to thank the board for approving the selection of AVG, and on there you can see some things that have been said about them. But the selection process in which the committee participated, it was pretty comprehensive, and we're very appreciative that the board recognized through the appointment of AVG the efforts of the committee and the group that were assembled to make that recommendation. When we first began the interview process of potential architects, there were some key things that we were looking for. And initially, there were 7 architects who responded to the newspaper article and the solicitation of an architect, and we pared that down to 4. But in the initial meetings with the group of 7, there were 7 things that were shared with them that we wanted to see within a presentation and what we wanted to see within that firm if they were selected to move forward. Now, out of those 7, we put 4 through. And each of them, again, were told how important it was that the people that we were meeting with during the presentation were the people that we were going to be working with throughout the project. That was number 1. Number 2, the successful group needed to display that they were student-focused. And there's no more important aspect to anything that we do than to make sure that we're student-focused and they understand that anything that they do will have to be with the achievement of our students in mind. We are looking for a partner to support us from the beginning to the bitter end. And we're currently in the bitter end of phase 1. And pun intended. But we're getting through that, and we are close to wrapping up the commissioning phase of phase 1. Number 4, the group needed to have experience with working with private partnerships throughout the community, and we'll understand that a little bit later. 5, the district was and is more focused on the efficiency and the efficiency of designs and the practicality of a design rather than being focused on architects who are focused on the design, the winning of awards through their design. So we're really concerned that whatever they come up with, there's a practicality and there's an efficiency rather than a focus on an award-winning design. 6, it's important to the group that they be local, or at least have a local presence, and this was a big factor in our decision. It's very difficult to work with a group that's out of town if they don't have that local focus. So that was something that was important to the group as we went through. And 7, finally, we needed that group to have some experience in a large-scale project, as this is going to be when we get on with it here. So we believe we found the perfect fit with AVG. Now, through the committee evaluations of the 4 presentations, 2 firms really stood out, and of course AVG, who we've recommended to the board and you've approved, and the other, though, was Fanning and Howey. They're an excellent firm from Columbus, Ohio. All 4 presentations, when we got down to those final 4, all 4 were very impressive. They had great concepts. They had a lot of really cool pictures. Some even had 3D fly-throughs of the buildings. And they all did a really, really good job at putting their best foot forward to get recognized as someone we may want to work with. However, it was only 2 that we felt really showed that student focus throughout their presentations. And again, that was ABG, and Fanning and Howard. Once we narrowed it down to 2 as a group, and it was pretty unanimous, the 1 and 2. There wasn't anybody else really close to those top 2, to ABG and Fanning and Howard. But once we did that, we decided that, hey, we've got to go out and check out their work. So we asked both architects for buildings that have been currently completed that they were the architect for. Fanning and Howie sent us to Medina High School, and I assume the reason they sent us to Medina High School was because there is a large partnership with a healthcare agency in town, and the YMCA, and the pools, and the physical attributes to the building. ABG sent us to Elyria High School, which had some partnerships not as comprehensive on the healthcare side as the Medina schools, but they had some partners with which they had to work through to enhance some of the LFI money and take care of some of the arts within the school, the spaces for the arts. So after spending the day touring both facilities, it became pretty apparent to us, I think, as a group, that ABG was the clear favorite among the 2. In addition to the project that you see on the screen there, it's a 270,000 square foot renovation project. In addition to that, ABG's work in Elyria was impressive and displayed some community partnerships in spaces for which we were looking as well. We were incredibly impressed with the complexity of the Elyria project that ABG had to work through. It was quite an ordeal, starting from the day that they walked on the job in 1999. There were several things that they had to work through, even in the preparation phases of this project, and they came with absolutely glowing recommendations from the Elyria superintendent, the business manager, the PR director, and many of the teachers, as we walked through the buildings, had nothing but great things to say about ABG. Now, Elyria began their process in 1999. They didn't finish until about 2011. So that was quite a process, going through and failing bond issues and trying different things to get the financing, and eventually they sought legislation amendment with the OSFC at the time, and they were awarded a way to get their project done financially. Every step of the way, ABG was there. Since 1999 through 2011, ABG did not miss one board meeting. They wanted to be here tonight. I didn't want to have them get a big head as we were talking nice about them. We want to keep them on level ground here, so I said that it was not necessary. But that's the kind of partner that we can expect with ABG. Their commitment to partnership in the community is outstanding. So here's some things. I just wanted to walk you through the building a little bit at Elyria High to show you some of the work that they've completed. This is a view of the project in its early stages. This is phase 1. The academic wing there on the bottom left-hand side of the screen. You have your demolition going on throughout the middle, and you have the old Washington building, which is that sandstone structure in the middle bottom of your screen. But at one time, all through here, these were 2 blocks, city blocks of houses, of homes, that Elyria had to purchase and get their hands on to create the land and the space to enable them to keep school going at the same time that they were building a new school, the new complex. ABG was, from everything we've been told, ABG was just a great partner in making sure that this got done. Right through here, you'll see this was a road connecting the main thoroughfare on Middle Avenue here with West Avenue. And right here was the edge of the building. This was the athletic complex. This was the administration building, and here over here was a small additional athletic complex that the freshmen used. Just another view of that. And another view. This is looking at the northwest end of the building, and right here is a big media center. And now they use the front side of this building for all the registrations from K through 12. They all come to a central location, and all the registrations are done right at the high school there, which I think is a pretty neat concept. This is just the academic wing, one side of the academic wing, and you can see right here it's a courtyard that leads off of that media center and the computer lab that kids can go enjoy during their time. They do have, you're allowed to bring your own devices there. They can go out and work on their laptop, do their homework, do their study periods out there. Another neat concept. Just quick views of the campus here. And this is the Performing Arts Center, and this is where we get into some of the partnerships, as you'll see as we go through the building. This Performing Arts Center obviously was an LFI, locally funded initiative. The community had to pay, that means the community had to pay for it. None of the money could come from the OSFC. And so what they did was they spoke with a couple different partners in town, and they were able to get a large portion of that auditorium funded through Invacare Corporation, which is a wheelchair company there in town, in Elyria. They've been there for a long time. This is the beginning of the athletic wing that is built now, and you can see that they did some of the things that we did at Bluestone, and they brought the EHS sandstone, if you look real close, from the old building and insert it into the new building. This is a courtyard, something that we were really focused. Again, our primary concern was student achievement and student involvement. This courtyard was completely designed by the students in the pre-construction phase of the project. What they did, they have two courtyards. I believe this is the art courtyard, and there's a science courtyard as well. What they did is they spent a lot of time with our art students and their Elyria's art students and science students, and they came up with creative designs, and they took the best of a collaboration of students, and this is what they came up with, which I think is really neat. They talk about, the PR director talks about how students still come back today from those classes and say, this was my idea, or that was my idea. So it's a great way to get that involvement from the students and that ownership from the community. Just another view of it. This is the outside of that rounded building, that rounded edge of the building. This is the inside of that, the computer lab and the media center. And this is another collaboration with the Rotary. The Elyria Rotary is right here. This is a little snack shack that they have within their computer lab, their media center, and it's open all day long. Kids can go grab a snack and while they're doing their homework or on their free period, what have you. Again, it was built through funds donated by the Rotary. This is a stairwell leading up to a television studio. They do their morning announcements. The mayor's there once a month, and they do their interviews right from this television studio. It's not operational anymore. They ran out of funds very quickly for it, and that's something that we'll keep in mind as we go forward, is that anything that we do, we have to keep in mind that it has to be able to be sustainable. And again, here's another partnership, and this is the technology lab, the computer lab that was paid for and built by Rigid Tool, which is another company right there in Elyria. I like this picture. It's a neat picture because the ABG was when you walk through the building, you can tell that they're very detail-oriented. And you can't see it here, but all these lights have triangular shapes in the round, and they bring it in with the ceiling here, and then the false ceiling, and then the terrazzo has triangles. And I mean, when you walk through, it's very, very nicely done. And the thought behind it is just, it's really neat on how they brought all the different shapes together. And again, you can see this is the foyer for the Invacare Corporation auditorium, the grand foyer, and they have great events there. They have political events there in that lobby. They have the plays from the kids. You know, I was there a couple of weeks ago for a volleyball match, and the school was just alive. It was buzzing. The community was involved. Everybody was, it was the place to be. It was just a really neat feeling to be inside the school with all the activity going on. This is the Hall of History, and when the time I was there, they didn't have anything in there, but today, when you walk through the Hall of History, it shows Elyria High School, which, by the way, is the oldest high school west of the Mississippi. East of the Mississippi. It's the oldest high school east of the Mississippi, and so you can imagine the type of things that they have sitting in their Hall of History. And then this last picture is just the band room and the choir rehearsal room. And this is the finished product. You can see how they tied it all together through their construction, and now they have a complete school. And in the front, you can see again the designs, the round, and just how they bring everything together here. The rounded sidewalks in the front, and then the rounded sidewalks in the back. They're just a really neat firm with some great ideas. I'm sorry?
Is that still the old administration
building? It is. I was just going to tell you about that. That Washington building now, the back wall of the Washington building serves as the wall to the cafeteria. So right in the middle here, this is your entire cafeteria area leading from right here. This is an auxiliary gym in the back and the brand new beautiful gym right up front. And then you have your performing arts wing and your performing arts auditorium and the performing arts wing right back there. And then, of course, this is your academic wing with the 2 courtyards that were designed by the students. So this Washington building now, it's been completely renovated. It has some really neat looking classrooms, some college type looking classrooms. And again, the back wall, they preserve the history of that building. That back wall serves as the back wall for the cafeteria. That's the wall for it. So it's visible from inside the cafeteria. Just really neat. Now with that, as I mentioned at the beginning, we wanted to talk about the private partnerships. And this is why. I'll never forget, as long as I'm doing this, that a meeting that we had, a work session meeting that we had with the board when we laid out this original concept, and the charge was go back when you have something a little bit more concrete and when there's been some progress, and I'm happy to tell you that we've made some progress on many fronts here. Lake Erie College, Lincoln Electric, Rockwell Automation, we've been working with for the past 9 years. The City of Euclid, obviously, they're in our buildings every day, utilizing our facilities. The YMCA is currently in our buildings with their before and after school program. We met with the Euclid Hospital, which I'll touch on a little bit more here in a minute. We are trying to get into Hosemaster, Stamco, and HC Stark to explore some opportunities with them as well. But everybody else on here, except for those 3, we have sat down and we've had conversations with, and we have strong interest from everybody involved. Now, here's some opportunities from an educational partnership, and this is the work that has been done in the last couple months to show some concrete examples and some things that we've done to progress the work. Lake Erie College, Dr. Smilek will be meeting with them within a week here, following up an initial meeting that we had about a month ago, and there are going to be opportunities for our students, and they're very interested in creating a dual enrollment type of environment within our high school. Did I say that correctly? Yes. Very good. Some of the opportunities that the students are going to have and that they're currently working on with Lake Erie College is a business program with an emphasis on Mandarin. Is a physician's assistant program in which Lake Erie College has just been awarded, and a general course requirement that we currently do with Cuyahoga Community College. Is that correct? So some of the opportunities for the staff is additional professional development that Lake Erie would like to bring in, a Master's of Education program. So I think it would just be really neat if they were able to bring this to our campus. Our teachers spend a day with our students and then spend a couple hours after school right there on campus bettering their career and making progress in their education. Their site, which is very popular in the private world, to get off site and get somewhere new. This is something that Cuyahoga Community College does a really good job with through their corporate centers on the east and west side. They would want to make this a center for that as well. Some industrial opportunities for our students, internships. We've spoken with Lincoln Electric, and they're really interested in having us help them fill one of their 86 open positions that they had last year. When we spoke to them initially, they had jobs that they could not fill. So when the topic and the thought of us coming up with a different kind of industrial arts wing, they were very excited. So an industrial arts wing instead of a wood shop, instead of home ec and things like that, maybe, or in addition to those things. We have private industry come in here and they teach our students their trade so that those students who aren't and know that they don't want to go to college, they have an opportunity better than McDonald's or Burger King or Kmart. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but they have an opportunity to do some things within their community that would better their plot in life. So the staff, they're talking, the staff opportunities is that we could support the current engagement, student engagement initiatives. We have some current engagement initiatives for our student, and this would just help support this because students who know that they don't want to go to college sometimes are saying, why am I taking this class and how am I going to apply it? If we can appeal to a broader number of students through the different programs and opportunities that we offer, I think that's going to improve the engagement of our students within the schools, thereby leading to supporting the discipline initiatives which have been brought here over the last year or two. And in that last one, I'll explain a little bit because I have it on two of them. It's an increased tax base for the community and the staff. The staff, we are all subject to the tax base within the community. If we're able to keep our jobs here and if we're able to fund programs here. By doing this, we're going to hopefully keep these students in town here. These students that we offer opportunities through our private partnerships, we keep them in town. We make them homeowners. Between 16 and 26, I know I wasn't very smart and it took me a while to appreciate things, but hopefully as they get older, they learn to appreciate what the school did for them, and they support our levies and our bonds going forward. Take up some of these empty houses and they broaden our tax base, and we grow the community and we build the community and we build our schools. They have kids, they send them to Euclid and they support our schools. I call it the circle of life with that. So it's exciting things when you think about it. Now we currently, as I mentioned earlier, we currently have a relationship with Rockwell Automation. For the last 9 years, our students have done some things with Rockwell Automation, culminating last year in a weather center in the Cleveland Children's Museum. And this shows you what's possible through private partnerships, because what they did, there's a Doppler, there's all the weather equipment, there's a Doppler ball on the top of the roof there. There's a green screen, as you can see, for the students to do weather forecasts and get involved with things like that through the Cleveland Children's Museum. On the right there, you'll see two students who graduated that came back for the ribbon cutting. They were there a couple months ago for that ribbon cutting. So neat stuff. Healthcare agency opportunities. There's internships upon graduation through Lake Erie College and through Euclid Hospital. And something that we're really focused on is not just creating partners within the school and these private partnerships, but creating partners within the partnerships. How can Lake Erie help Euclid Hospital, University Hospital? How can employment at Stamco or employment at Lincoln Electric lead to a student maybe saying, I wasn't ready when I was 18, but now I'm 26, 28, I don't think I want to work on the line anymore. I would like to go and maybe explore some sales opportunities or some management opportunities. And I'm going to go back to Euclid through Lake Erie College in the Euclid High School building, and I'm going to get my degree. And I'm going to grow even more than this job that was afforded me by the programs that Euclid made possible. So we're always, the idea is that we're always working with these groups, always giving back, and always trying to improve the lives of not only our students, but the residents of the Euclid, of the city of Euclid. So here's the timeline. The timeline, we've already accomplished a couple of these things. We're meeting Monday with a small group, our cabinet group and our administrative group at the high school and the 2 middle schools, and we really want to understand how this needs to look and how we need to market it and how we need to go forward and how we need to share the message and really what the next steps are for bringing the community in and bringing our private businesses in. December we'll have several collaboration meetings. That, with the holiday, may leak over into January, which is fine. The architect is looking to have some conceptual drawings, not only in January, but they're looking to bring something Monday to kind of show us. And the board has told me that you would like 3 options, and they're providing all 3 of those options. And those real detailed, more conceptual drawings will be available in January. In February, we'll start our public meetings. In March, we'll have a decision, hopefully, by the board, and that's, I think, what we'll push you for is a decision as to how you would like the alignment to look and the grade levels and everything in these new buildings. In April, we'll begin marketing. In May, we'll have a final schematic and a rendering of the plan. In June and October, we'll really hit that hard through public meetings and different groups throughout the community. In November, we're going to pass this bond issue with, hopefully, some luck through a petition that President Van Ho made the opportunity available to us to meet with our senator. And currently, they are reviewing a potential amendment in their legislation that would allow the community to see an increase in OSFC, well, it's the OFCC contribution now. Currently, the OFCC contributes 41% to any new project that we do. And we're locked into that, and it gets confusing, but we're locked into that rate because we did this project in a segmented phase. If they pass the legislation, the contribution from the OFCC will be 67%. And in a project of this scope, that means about $30 million to our community. So we're very hopeful. Senator Turner has the information, and they are trying to get that in front of the legislative body before they go for holiday break. Now, in conclusion, there's an excitement about this project. There's an excitement that our students in 3 to 4 or 5 years may have new schools, relatively new schools, from the time they're in kindergarten all the way through their senior year. I think the staff will be excited to come to school every day because of all the opportunities that some of these programs and new buildings are going to bring. The community will be engaged like never before. And I want to touch on and quickly just paint a picture for you. We all have moms or had moms at one time, and I shared this with Ms. Van Ho while we were in Columbus. And I think it would just be a neat thing as we look at the community and how our partnerships would interact. Mom comes, she has a doctor's visit on Wednesday. The doctor takes a long time to get me in. I'm always sitting there for an hour. I'm going to stop at the library, which is right on the Euclid High School campus. I'm going to pick up a book. She reads that book. Maybe she gets a chapter and a half done by the time the doctor sees her. The doctor's really nice, though. The doctor schedules her appointments on days that she has physical therapy, maybe Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of every week. She gets her doctor's visit. She gets done. And Doc says, "Hey, you going to physical therapy?" "Yep, headed to physical therapy right now." That physical therapy is taking place in our therapeutic pool right here on Euclid campus. We have 2 pools. One gets turned into a therapeutic pool. Mom walks right across the bridge. She gets her physical therapy done. Mom says, oh, I'm hungry. She walks down to the end of the high school and she enjoys a lunch from our award-winning culinary arts program, our nationally recognized culinary arts program. And while she's there, she's walking by our students who are saying, hey, how you doing? And by the way, when she gets that physical therapy, before she goes to get lunch at our culinary arts program, she's getting that physical therapy by one of our graduating students. Maybe she's an intern or he's an intern that graduated a year or two ago from Lake Erie College or is in the middle of graduating and has that internship through the Euclid Hospital or University Health Partners. And so our student is servicing one of our residents through the program that was made available through our schools. So after lunch, she realizes, oh, I forgot to put the put the water bill in the mail. I'm going to walk right over and pay my utility at the city hall. And that's the kind of synergy that we're trying to create here within the community and within the schools. The OSFC, the OFCC, is excited. They say this would be the largest project that they've ever completed, and they all want to put their name on it. They've been in existence since 1997. The architects they're ready and they're willing to tackle the complexities of this project, similar to like they did at Elyria. At Elyria, they have 287 geothermal wells that are 500 feet, dug 500 feet into the ground. So they understand the complexities of buying homes. Not that they're going to have to do that here, but they understand the complexities. They've been here. They've been touring our tunnels underneath the high school. They've been trying to figure out ways to make everybody talk to each other with regard to our renovation and possibly a new part of our building, and they're here and they're very excited about it. It would be the largest project, by the way, that they would have encountered as well, but I know they're capable because of the 270,000 square foot renovation at Alliance and the 325,000 square foot, $75 million building that they're building in Elyria. They're capable. The community meetings are beginning in December, and I think we'll be able to start sharing the vision established at that time. I know I'm excited. I hope you're excited. I think this is going to be a great journey, and hopefully it's going to be aided by some legislation change before the holidays here. Any questions?
Let me just talk on, we met, and I think most of you knew that we were going to do this at Capitol Conference right afterwards. Mr. Higley, Mr. Vasic, and I went and met with Senator Turner and also the senior legislative aide for our representative, Armin Budish. He was unable to attend, but they asked some good questions. We got them some more information, and a lot of what she wanted to know was how they could make this that any change in the legislation isn't just Euclid, that it would tap into different parts of the state as well. And so Pat was able to provide that information right away. She is, as she said, she tried to say 150%, and then she went to 1,050% because she said she was just so excited for the opportunities that this would give to our students. And she is going to create the timeline for what they need to do in the information and give us any additional people that she feels would be important to talk to. She feels that we'll get some support out of the Senate Education Committee, and it's just a matter of can we get enough other communities that could be impacted by this as well. And the big thing that she was looking at was our 26% loss in our property values in the community, and how significantly that impacts everything that we do. She didn't realize that we got hit quite that badly, and so she was surprised. I was able to give her some information real estate-wise as the impact and longer-term projections and so forth. So I think that she's got great information now, and she will then come up with her plan, and we'll work her plan since she knows the state legislative partners and so forth that she needs to tap into down there. And then we'll probably be meeting with some of them as well. But it was a great meeting, and she really is on board with this. I think that did you want to talk about some of the communities that you thought might be affected, or did you have that information?
Oh, yeah, I just pulled it up. There's about 85, I think, communities, and the majority of the communities would be impacted positively through the change in legislation. And when I say it would be an error to say that any community would be penalized, because that's simply not the case. This formula was set up in 1997 to determine what a community could afford to pay. And the formula was set up by the state, not the school districts, not the municipalities or anything. It was set up by the state. So there's one district in here that, for example, would look at a 23% reduction. Cedar Cliff in Greene County. I'm not sure where that is.
It's by Xenia.
By Xenia. Right now, their local contribution was 48%, and they're locked into that 48%. They got locked into it in 2008. So if it were a $100 million project, they'd pay $48 million. But today, because of their assessed values that have gone up, unlike ours, which have dropped $312 million since over the last 5 years, they're able to pay 71%. So I can't imagine that if this legislation got changed, Cedar Cliff would be very happy with Euclid. But that's not much of our concern, because the state says that they can afford to pay 23% more than they're currently locked into paying, because they segmented their project, just like we did in 2008. But the majority of this, you'll see, if you look closely through the board mailer, the majority of the schools would benefit by this legislation change, which is exactly what Senator Turner was hoping to see.
Are there any other questions? So when will we meet these architects and have something from them? We as the board meeting with them.
Probably December, you as the board, probably December, early January, the board will be running.
Okay, and then the other question is, do they have any experience with, well, I guess maybe the Alliance? Because we have parts of our building that we know the state won't fund, and we want to protect. So they have experience with re-energizing those areas of the building, as well as...
Both at Alliance and Elyria on a much smaller scale, but at both sites they were able to restore and renovate some of the older parts of the buildings.
Okay. And I'm glad to hear you still saying the 3 plans that they're going to develop for us, since the decision has not been made as far as how we're going to configure things yet. We can put you in charge of the bond issue, since you're such a positive person speaking about all of this. You're doing such a great job in convincing us anyhow about how wonderful this is going to be for kids, which is the main important thing. But I think it's also going to be a nice kick in the pants, so to speak, for the city, because I think that it's really going to help with housing. High schools are always what everybody looks at to see what they're like. They're usually considered the flagships of every community. And so I think it's really important that we do a nice job on this, because coming right down to 22nd, it's going to be very, very noticeable. So thank you very much for your presentation. You had another question?
Yes.
I just kept looking for people.
You was ready. Couple of things, Mr. Higley. You may have just fallen victim to trying to give us a 15-minute overview of a project that you could have gone on for much longer. So I don't, because certain things weren't included in your presentation that I want to ask you about, doesn't mean that you haven't thought about them.
Sure.
I think one of the frustrations that the board had with the elementary school project was that I think, and again, I don't want to speak for the board, but this was at least a frustration of mine, and I think it was shared by others, is we would have wanted the construction project to be greener, more renewables, less impact on the environment, but we didn't budget for those. There was additional costs that we would have incurred on the front end of that, and we didn't budget for those in the bond levy that we put forward to the voters. So, again, I haven't really heard what additional efforts are going to be made to try to make this segment greener than the last segment. And I guess I would just kind of point out that one of the partners you're talking about, Lincoln Electric, is very much in the wind turbine business. I don't know how realistic it would be to put a bit of a turbine in the middle of this project, but I got to believe that Lincoln Electric might have some, interest in this.
Sure. I concur. I think the elementary schools could have been greener. The waterless urinals, the geothermal, the different way, the electric production through the wind energy. There surely could have been more green, more energy or environmentally friendly. That said, though, there are a lot of things that you don't necessarily see throughout these elementary schools. The wells in the front of them, the low flush unit. I mean, the light sensors. There are several things that were incorporated that aren't as flashy, I guess, as some of these bigger things. And certainly not because of flash, but because of the energy savings yield is the reason to do those things. And certainly with Elyria, with the geothermal wells, that's going incredibly well. And I would envision that maybe along with a turbine at our site here. But again, like you said, it comes down to finances.
Yeah, and I guess part of what I'm asking the architects to explore is, again, how can we make this more environmentally friendly than what the state requires? Not belittling clearly the buildings that we have serving our elementary school population are greener than the ones they replace, no doubt about it. But again, I just think that there might be, as we look at energy as a limited commodity, and water is a limited commodity, just the things that we can do now, knowing that these buildings are going to serve the population and this community for at least the next 50 years. Mm-hmm. Again, I think it would serve the board well and serve the community well to know what are some of the investments that we could make up front. And again, the advantage is that you've got the biggest employer in town being very active in these particular industries. So I would think that the collaboration opportunity would be available.
I agree.
So there's that. Also, one thing that wasn't mentioned, two things that weren't mentioned that might need to be addressed in this phase 2 is Memorial Park, and whatever we're calling it at the moment, but the elementary school on Fox Avenue, and the bus garage.
Correct.
And again, haven't seen those in this presentation, which doesn't say to me that you haven't thought about it, but we're not going to have, if we're going to do both middle school and high school in this phase, we're going to be done at that point, and it would serve us well for us to consider Memorial Park and what our plans are for that building, but also the bus garage.
Well, part of the planning phase of this is to determine what kind of configuration that we would like to see. And once we're sure of how the board would like to see it configured and the community would like to see it configured, then we can get a few more answers regarding our vacant buildings right now. I can tell you you're right, there's a lot of information, but that's another part of this community partnership, is that we're currently in negotiations with Kitty City for our Lincoln Elementary site. And that could be a lease that begins in July. And we're very mindful of the opportunity that some of these buildings would pose for a charter school, which, again, isn't something I think that we're interested in seeing too many more of come into our community. So we're working with Kitty City for a partnership in a lease agreement with Lincoln Elementary School, and we're working with a company called Little Giants, which is a school for obese children, and it's a program that's put on by this group in which they go and learn healthy eating habits and so forth, and they're looking at our Ben Franklin site, again, with the lease potential starting this summer. With regard to Memorial, and I think I've shared with you my plan one, there would be some different things that we could do with our students there at Memorial to get them integrated into another school that we have in mind for phase 2. If not, obviously I think we would need to speak with Dr. Benton and Ms. Allen and determine the need for our students and how we anticipate those programs growing.
Any other questions? I would just like to see that the board is a little more involved, and then also that if they come up with some of the grand plans that we heard last time of having an office so that people could see the progress and 3D and so forth, that if they want to do those things, that we follow up and make sure that they do.
Absolutely.
Because our last people kind of left us flat on some of those things. And
What about the scholarships they promised too? I
Yeah.
never saw those.
the scholarships and so
Basically
forth.
seniors.
There was a lot of talk before the last one, and so hopefully these people,
This is a firm of action, I can assure you that.
okay, well, we might be more inclined to hold their feet to the fire now that we've been through it once.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, I asked the board if they wanted to share out any of the information that they received either at Capitol Conference or at the Greater School Conference. Ms. Lacey already shared out once, and I was going to say if you wanted more time, but we start that. Ms. DeAngelis?
One of the things that I learned with New Mexico, even though it is hundreds of miles away, we're the same. We're the exact same. It was kind of nice to see that and get to see it up close. We toured Las Lunas School District, and we saw some of the same things we see at our high schools, some of the same behaviors, some of the same terminology. We sat in on a collaboration at one of the elementary buildings, and hearing Common Core being discussed. Everybody's in the same boat across the country. I think all 46 states that are participating in it. One of the sessions I sat in was hiring of administrators and how this whole process of how they hire administrators. It was one of the districts outside of Houston, and one of the things I found very interesting. For one, Houston is not that district did not have unions, and they also were talking about the fact that they start the process with an online application, and then from there you get basically an online interview. It's not a real person speaking to you, but you have this computerized interview, and that leads the next step. They're looking for keywords, key phrases, and whatever else. And then they do a Skype interview. It was actually a person from their central office team. And then from there, it's down to an in-person interview. So there's a lot that goes into the hiring of their administrators, and the whole initial process is all looking for certain keywords and key phrases to be said to be able to go on the next step. So it's kind of interesting, and one of the other things was brought up in some of the paperwork I read once I came back home. I pulled up all the PowerPoints again, because they didn't really have enough to hand out at each of the sessions. So I was pulling them off and printing them off. No excuses. Some of the common excuses that they hear that every district was talking about was the children are poor, they come to school without breakfast, their parents don't care, there aren't enough books. There aren't enough parents who are helping out with the kids. So They said, there's no excuses. Number one goal is to educate the children. So I came out of it feeling like you're some of the same things that we're saying in this community, we got to hear in lots of other communities, which made me feel pretty good that we're all moving in the right direction.
Okay. Mrs. Sudar?
I did not go to Albuquerque, but at the Capitol Conference, I did attend. I thought it was a very interesting session. It was put on by our local Mentor school district, and Mentor schools have a middle school that they are piloting a blended learning model. And because of our one-on-one initiatives, I thought it would be very interesting to go to this session and just kind of see how they've approached this process, and it was very, very interesting. They started out by renovating classrooms and making them more conducive to the blending of technology and also, your standard learning. They did some really interesting things where a lot of their walls that were, they put plexiglass on them, so you observe children who were literally writing on the walls. So it was just a really good collaborative environment that they prepared for the kids, and you could really see through their presentation how they use technology to blend learning and, again, ultimately to impact achievement. And they do have a classroom, which was very interesting. They have an observation room so that you can go and observe. So I think that I know I was asked, they have a kindergarten classroom. This is actually a middle school, but there's a kindergarten teacher who goes to the middle school, I think 3 days a week, and they are working in this kind of this observation classroom. And one of the principals asked, because I do teach preschool, if I wanted to come and observe how the kindergartners actually use this blended learning model to learn. And take it down in the preschool level, kind of preparing kids for that kind of an environment. But it was very interesting. So hopefully Euclid will visit Mentor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Smith?
I was unable to attend the grade schools conference in New Mexico. Did, however, attend the Capitol Conference in Columbus. And I was, as the board knows and as the public knows, if you've watched these meetings, I'm the legislative liaison for the board. Have served in that role quite a bit and have enjoyed it, but have also been frustrated by it. As I see the interplay of politics with education policy that oftentimes constrains the Euclid City Schools and what we're able to do. And one of the interesting things that, and I guess my remarks are going to be fairly partisan, and I try to actually not have them be fairly partisan, but I attended the OSBA legislative update, the Ohio School Boards Association legislative update. And one of the things that's unfolding at a national level is the divide within the Republican Party between what some folks are calling kind of the mainstream Republican Party and the Tea Party Republican Party. And I was curious as to whether or not any of this was unfolding at the state level. Obviously, we saw it unfold a month ago or so with the government shutdown and getting close to America defaulting on its debt. But we didn't really hear whether or not there was this kind of division within state government. And lo and behold, during the legislative update, there arose a discussion on House Bill 237, which is in opposition to the Common Core, introduced by State Representative Andrew Thompson. Among the things that this bill includes it would prohibit the State Board of Education from implementing the Common Core standards. It would prohibit the types of assessments that are involved in the Common Core standards. it prohibits state officials from ceding any measure of control over academic content standards. And it also requires the State Board of Education to hold hearings in every congressional district before changing the standards. And this bill is an idea from Glenn Beck, the conservative radio talk show host, which is, again, kind of amazing that this is being discussed in Columbus, because Glenn Beck has taken to the habit of calling the Common Core Obama Core, a takeoff on Obamacare. And again, what's troubling or interesting about this is this bill has 14 co-sponsors. And we heard from the chairman of the House Education Committee, who's more of a classic Republican. And he essentially said that this bill would get a hearing but wouldn't go any further if he had anything to do with it. And so I think this is very interesting. This bill will be a very interesting dynamic as it unfolds in Columbus because, again, this bill has 14 co-sponsors. Essentially, this is education policy conceived of, by a conservative birther radio host who's got a pithy name for this. But it'll be interesting to see if the Republicans who oppose this get primaried by Tea Party opponents. And so I think that's where this is a curious bill. I would guess that if it actually comes to a floor vote, the Democrats would oppose it, some Republicans would oppose it, because this is a national standard, the Common Core. We are making curriculum decisions in Euclid based on this being implemented in the future. And again, because a talk show host comes up with a kind of catchy phrase, it's actually being debated that we should not cede educational authority to the federal government. So that was one thing. Another thing is I went through a session that was hosted by the Ohio Coalition for Equity and Adequacy for School Funding, which is an organization that the majority of the school districts in Ohio are members of. This is actually the group that instituted the DeWolf lawsuit back in 1994. And they're very much focused on the charter school issue at this point. And again, I heard some tremendously interesting / disturbing things about the charter school industry in Ohio. One of those was just the total amount of money that has been taken from the public school budget and given to the charter school industry since 1999. And you would be amazed at how much money it is. According to their calculations, it is $6 billion, billion with a B. $1 billion has gone to David Brennan, who is the head of White Hat Management based in Akron. There's also not all of that money, this is since 1999, not all of that money has even stayed in Ohio. $500 million has gone to a company called K-12 Incorporated, which is in Virginia, and another $500 million has gone to a company in New York called Imagine. And again, the Ohio tax dollars flowing out of the state for the purpose of charter school profiteering, I find continually disturbing. I have a 38-page report from the Ohio Coalition of Equity and Adequacy. I will not read all of it, but I would like to read portions of it since I'm reporting out. One of these bullet points is, and I think this is important to know, the original concept, quoting now from the report, the original concept of charter schools allowing teachers and parents to establish innovative, creative educational environments within the public school district has been hijacked by for-profit operators and other individuals and groups that promote the privatization of public education. I could not agree more with that summation. Again, reading about the $1 billion, and so the amount of money that is now going to charter schools and through charters and vouchers is approximately $1 billion in the most recent state budget. This school year, more than $1 billion will be extracted from school budgets to support charter schools, students, and vouchers. And to give you an idea how much that is, $1 billion would purchase 12,500 school buses or pay the salaries and benefits of 14,285 teachers. On average, it would provide an additional $600 per student. Obviously, traditional districts would have more students to educate if choice programs would be eliminated, but the system would be more efficient. Since the charter school movement started, there have been more than 300 new school entities added, which has greatly reduced the efficiency of schooling in Ohio. And I think I had one other bullet point. Yeah. Oh, that's awfully number-based. I'll skip that just for the sake of not trying to flood too many folks in too many numbers. But again, one of the challenges that I think that the public school community has is, again, that the charter schools, what was designed for academic and educational innovation has been hijacked by for-profit operators and other individuals and groups that promote the privatization of public education. And combined, and when you create that, there's a lack of oversight on public taxpayer dollars, which is troubling. But the concept that oftentimes the charter school operators put forth is the need for competition, just like the business model, competition within public education or choice. And I would suggest that the idea of competition needs to not be involved in the process of education, but the idea of competition needs to be focused on the end of education. And what I mean by that is that we need to be able to have our future workforce be able to compete in the global economy. And in that respect, we are using the 13 years of public education to get them to the point where they are best able to compete. We're not competing for their educational expenditure during those 13 years. We're trying to ensure that they can compete on a global marketplace after they complete their education. And so the focus should not be on competition within the 13 years of public education, but the focus should be on quality and delivering a good quality educational outcome for the future workforce of this state and this nation. And again, the educational, the for-profit educational profiteers make their voices heard through political contributions. And I actually traded some text messages just to kind of try to confirm that with someone who is currently a judge but used to be the state senator for the city of Euclid. And I asked that individual how much money was spent, and this individual happens to be a Democrat, but how much money was spent by the Republican Party to try to capture his state Senate seat. And the candidate was a well-known former mayor of Euclid. And this individual who I was talking to said that this Republican candidate got $40,000 in campaign contributions from a well-known charter school operator. And just think about that some charter school operator had so much disposable income that they could write a $40,000 campaign check to a district for a district race that more often than not is going to end up with a Democratic victory. So again, when you take $6 billion out of public education since 1999 and put it in the hands of for-profit operators, I'm not sure you're getting good educational outcomes or, a good or a stronger workforce in the future. So those were some of the things that I came away with from this year's Capitol Conference.
Thank you. Lacey, did you want to share?
I'll be brief.
That's okay.
I commented last board meeting from the Council for Great City Schools Conference. So I did have an opportunity to go to Columbus, only there for a day and a half. I had to get back to work. But I did have a chance to sit in on a seminar given by the Cincinnati Public School System. And what they've developed there is a community learning center, which does exactly what Mr. Higley was talking about. It was talking about engaging community partnerships through school facilities. And I found it very interesting because what they did is they needed to develop what's called a shared vision. And the shared vision has to start with churches, hospitals, businesses, community leaders, all in an effort to revitalize the community or the city of Cincinnati. They focused on 4 core areas that everyone in the community could share this vision. It's centered around academics, parent involvement, community engagement, and health. And then those 4 core areas were then aligned and then integrated into services and then partnerships. So then you would have tutoring, and the partners would be GE, which is a major business and in Cincinnati, Procter & Gamble, Cincinnati Bell, Macy's. These businesses have all partnered with the Cincinnati Public School System to create that particular service for those for particular schools within that district. They also had a social emotional support component that was being serviced through Central Clinic, Fernside Center, and Beach Acres. A lot of these are probably mental health organizations that help to support those particular needs of the community, and this is all done for free. These are just partnerships that they've done to look at a community and say, we're all here together, we're all in it together. If we want to revitalize and continue to be prosperous, we need to look at how we might partner together to not just benefit the students and families, but the entire community. They went through health and wellness, where they have Whole Foods, that's part of their group, that gives educational or health educational seminars on health and wellness. They have an arts and culture integration, which the Cincinnati Opera's with, the Children's Museum, the Cincinnati Ballet, and they even have some ballroom dancing. I know that we have some of those initiatives already, but just think the impact and that we could have and the number of students who can be serviced if we had these types of partnerships. I can go on, but and then college and career readiness is also one of the components. GE Aviation Club. I know we have a partnership through Cleveland State University, through Fenn Academy, which, I just keep thinking that we can just expand a number of opportunities, and it's so nice to see that we're creating partnerships through Lake Erie College. We just need to continue to do that. And if this is going to be the vehicle for us to do that, to revitalize our community, then I'm on board, count me in. The one thing I did notice, and I asked the 2 women that were giving the seminar, is that they have 2 particular people or positions that help generate and guide this whole process. They have what's called a local school decision-making committee. They call it the LSDMC, which is made up of board members, principals, and community members, and business owners. And this sort of works with what's called a resource coordinator. The resource coordinator is the person who kind of drives this whole thing. The resource coordinator couldn't be at the seminar, but I did invite ourselves for a field trip to Cincinnati, and the women were very gracious and said if we would ever like to come down and just see how they've created these partnerships and how they work, they would be more than happy to have us come. Also, you can access their website at www.cincinnati.clc, which stands for communitylearningcenter.org, and it's just what a great concept. These women spoke with such passion and such love for their community, for their families, and for their children. I just really enjoyed that. And then in going through the trade show area, looking for free takeaways to bring home to my children, I ran into the sheet metal workers. This was their first time having a booth at Capitol Conference. And I met with someone who is very familiar with the Cleveland area and says that we actually have a shortage of sheet metal workers in our area, and that they're looking to partner with schools to create internships and apprenticeships. I had taken his information, I passed it along to Dr. Smilek, and they said that they would love for their local sheet workers union to meet with our school and Lincoln Electric, because I guess sheet working or sheet metal working and welding kind of go hand in hand, and I didn't know that. But so I passed that information along to Charlie or Dr. Smilek, and hopefully something can come of that. So it's just very interesting that the two sessions that I concentrated on seemed to fit in very well with what was being presented tonight. So kind of came full circle. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. I just want to touch base on two different ones, because one was at the conference in Albuquerque and talked about educating African American males was the primary focus, and it was presented by a team of African American males that were all affiliated with different universities in teaching education and so forth. But he talked, one of the things that came out, because I really was writing fast and furiously, and he said that that we don't adultify our kids, and said that African American males especially are not adultified, and that affects their learning because they're not understanding the relationship of what they are learning in school to what they need to go on into their adult life. So they're not making that connection, and they're not getting the soft skills that they need to be successful. And they emphasize that we need to teach the soft skills of getting along and collaborating and all of that for these students to be successful when they go out into either college or go out into the workforce. He said that we need to be asking our kids, what learning energizes you or fascinates you? He said, you'll be surprised at the answers you're going to get. But he said that African American males and males in general function best within structure, which kind of goes along with what we've been trying to provide in our schools. They said that kids can be identified as special ed and gifted, but that the African American student will usually lose the gifted tag if they're identified both ways. And they talked about the low number, and oops, I lost the number. I think it's 4% of black males are in gifted education, and yet statistically that number should be much higher. And they feel that part of it is because culturally it's been perceived negatively by their peers if they show off their giftedness in school. And so what they suggested is that we need to create packs of bright African American males and allow them to develop their work ethic and, help them to have their little pack of other gifted African American males so that they can succeed as a group, which then allows them each to succeed individually. One of the gentlemen said was that you can't be around excellence without changing. And so that's the picture that they were trying to paint for us, is that we need to provide these opportunities for them to work together and work in a group in order to develop that, the fortitude to keep working and succeeding in school. And then they shared something which my son also shared. I heard it from two different sources in less than a week. Florida bases the number of prison cells that they need to build based on third grade reading scores, which is a really sad thing when you think about it. And yet, what is Ohio talking about but the third grade reading guarantee? And so what they're saying is that a student who is not succeeding at being able to read at that third grade level in third grade chances are it's going to fall through the cracks and end up in a situation where they don't have a PAC to support them, and so they go find a PAC, and the PAC that they choose may not be the one that we would want to choose for them. And so we need to make sure that we're providing the support so that they, number one, get that third grade reading, but also that they continue to have their PAC that they can function in, and that they will create their own rules and be able to work together as they progress through school. The other one was one I was a moderator for in Columbus, and it was based out of Springfield schools outside of Toledo, and it was all based on student volunteering. And it's presented through the Lincoln Foundation, and the Lincoln Foundation has long presented awards to people in the communities for their volunteering in the community. They decided then to try putting it into high schools, and Springfield was one of the high schools chosen in Ohio to start this program, and they are now expanding it into the Toledo schools. And basically the one woman said is, when you want to do this, you get out of the kids' way, because they'll be able to take it over. But you offer it to every single student, that there's no grade requirement, there's no, they have to be athletic or anything else. This is something that's totally open to all students, and they keep track of the amount of time that they spend volunteering in the community. And so the community, the coordinator went out and got, to get them started, got some places that would use them. And it was simple things like putting labels on for a church that needed, their newsletters labeled. It could be working in conjunction with an organization like the YMCA and providing some extra help. It could be tutoring within the schools. And the first year, the kids set a goal, and they said it's very important you have a visual. And so they had a visual of like a thermometer that showed how many hours were being recorded, and you kept track and turned your hours in. And the first year they set a goal, and they said, we're going to do 15,000 hours worth of volunteering work. Well, they fell a little bit short. They only made a little over 12,000 the first year. So the next year, they set a new goal. They said, okay, we didn't make 15, but this year we're going to make 20. And, of course, the adult was like, that's not how you set goals. You're reaching too far, blah, blah, blah. And she said she had to learn to shut up and just let them go ahead and drive the group. There's no one specific leader. They have a core group of leaders, so that there's no voting on officers or things like that, which could then have those kids that always are in the cliques be the officers. So instead they have a group of leaders, and they work together, and the adult is just there to facilitate the meeting that they get started on. But she said they had the goal of 20,000 hours, and they did 23,000. So their plans are just to keep expanding and expanding. And she said it has changed the culture of the high school, because now instead of focusing on, what did they do Friday night, or did they go out and walk the mall on Saturday or whatever, now everybody's talking about, how many hours did you do this week? Did you get, where did you volunteer? I found a group that needs some more help, and so forth. And so it was really an amazing change in the whole culture of the high school, but also it made a positive impact in the community, because now that's the big thing, that everybody knows that these high school kids are out there and they're contributing to the community, and the various organizations that have received that help are obviously very thrilled to have the help, and they're getting a new respect for the children in the schools. Springfield, just to give you an example, because I originally thought it was a typical suburb like a Mentor or something, and it's not. It actually takes in part of Toledo, and it takes in some townships plus the city or village of Springfield. So it has quite a cross-section of students, and she said that they were doing They do things like that we do, such as food drives and so forth. And so they were doing a food drive, and she said one of the guys who's like really high up as far as turning in numbers of volunteer hours went to them afterwards and said, I just want to thank you for doing that, or having the food drive, because that's going to be the food that my family has for this weekend. And, she said she never would have guessed that, because it's all done confidentially, so, the kids don't know who else is getting this kind of help. Another one was where a woman adopted several families and bought Christmas presents for them, and the kids wrapped the presents and didn't know who the presents were going to. And one of the kids said, my brother really enjoyed his present. But each time they only talk to the adult to share that kind of information, because they don't want the other kids to know their situation. But she said that it felt good to know that they're actually helping each other even within their school, and it had a real positive impact. So those were the two sessions I wanted to talk about. I really had great experiences. I could talk a lot about all the different sessions that I attended, but we do have a time limit here.
And then the other thing was being able to see how large districts are dealing with some of the same issues, and I think Mrs. DeAngelis mentioned the fact that we're very similar. The only difference is scale. You just have a different scale. We have a different scale here, and there are a lot of things that are takeaways that we can use to be able to drive some of the things that we're trying to do. And then the third thing for me was there are a lot of advocacy groups through the Council of Great City Schools that speak to our issues, the Ed Choice issue, all of the different things that we have to deal with. They have some solutions that have been tried and tested that we can use, so we don't have to necessarily bump our heads up against some of those things. So we have a source of being able to go out and take a look at some of those things. So I thought that all of those things were very good, and it was a great opportunity to be able to work with the board and get a chance to have the offline conversations, because sometimes those are really the most robust conversations were the ones we had offline after what we saw, and then trying to put some of those things together. So I thought that was good, very good.
All right, at this time, the board is going into executive session. Oh, sorry.
I'd just like to add one thing. Last weekend was the fall play at the high school, and I went on Friday night. It was fantastic. If you missed it, you missed a phenomenal show. Sorry, you have to make sure you catch one next year, because it was great. The humor was good. The kids did a great job. It just was one of those nice things. Everybody now we're looking forward to a Big Show. Can't wait. That's a prelude, I think, to Big Show. But I want to thank everybody, Miss Latessa and Miss Meisen from the high school. You could tell all their hours along with what the students did. It was probably one of the best ones I've seen.
Just two other things I just wanted to mention. One was I wanted to publicly thank the firefighters for the Coach for Kids. And we're going to recognize them at a board meeting, but I just wanted to publicly thank. I had an opportunity to go to Bluestone and Shoreview, and just great to watch them give back, and the expression on the kids' faces when they got the coats, and just how excited they were. So I just want to publicly just thank them and let them know how much our kids really appreciate that, and the relationship that they have built with both schools and really with our district. So I thought that was great. And then the other thing, I wanted to congratulate Central Middle School on the NFL Play 60. And we're going to formally do that at board meeting, but I wanted to do that tonight just to let them know. We had the Cleveland Browns here. They did a great job. Kids did a nice job. We're going to be specific about that next month, but I do want to congratulate Central and the district on a great activity, and very, very well received, and the kids did a nice job. So just wanted to mention those two things.
2.8 million minutes?
Yes, 2.8 million minutes.
Okay. Just a reminder to the board, we do have two meetings in December. We have our regular meeting, and then the special meeting will be the following week on the 16th, just to make sure you have your calendars there. At this point, I will take a motion to go into executive session. From someone?
I'll make the motion that we go into executive session for the purpose of evaluation of the superintendent.
Thank you. Mrs. Lacey motioned. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. DeAngelis. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Sudar.
Yes.
Mrs. Van Hoen.
Yes.
Mrs. DeAngelis.
Yes.
Mrs. Lysy.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Okay.